Do you ever wonder how great leaders in the community make things happen? When they encounter new, unexpected challenges like a pandemic, how do they continue to successfully make an impact? Welcome to That Sounds Terrific, the podcast that connects you with these amazing people. Get insights on what they do to meet their goals, find out how you can help them in their mission, and learn their methods so you can be more successful at what you do. Welcome to That Sounds Terrific with host Nick Koziol.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of That Sounds Terrific. And joining me today might be a familiar face for some of my listeners because I was on his podcast, is Nico, a host of the Everlasting Podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Nick.
Yeah, it's been sort of a long time coming.
Yeah.
So Nico's had the experience of the Nick organizational skills, which or lack thereof lately. So we've been talking about doing this, and then I realized through his help, I didn't send him any kind of link to do this. So we're doing this, and I'm so glad that you are joining us because you've done some really unique and cool things. And I'd love for you to just kind of give the audience like a quick overview of like who you are and a little bit about yourself. So let's start.
Yeah, where does it's always these moments where people ask me like, who are you, what do you do, and stuff like that. I'm like, where do I begin?
Right. I was
Because
born.
I was born a long time ago in the far west, no, the far east from you for you guys. So basically, I'm from Belgium. I'm from Europe. That's the short version. And I am a father, a partner, for I think the end of this week we're 16 years married.
Oh,
so
wow, congratulations!
Thank you very much. Two boys, one turning 14, one turning 12. So we ended up in the teenage years, and we get the grunts and the moans and all that wonderful stuff that you get as extra with teenagers. I've been in business in general. So my career is 25 years, hitting on 26, where I've done IT, I've done sales, I've done cabling, I've done leadership, I've done 300 head teams, executive, etc., etc. One of the things that I've noticed in my career, and actually I've kind of come to an epiphany lately, Nick, and is that my career has been a chain reaction of searching for the other thing. And the question I use in my business these days is the question of what else is there. And I've been actually living that what else is there for a long time, always striving to get to that next level. And that's my career, basically. 15 different jobs. And then in 2019, in November, I decided to get out of the platinum chair of IBM, also called Big Blue, also has some reputations, not only on Jeopardy, but on other platforms as well, where I found myself in an environment that is not resonating, that was not resonating with me and would not resonate now, which is a very white collar, blue collar, rainbow color environment, all kinds of different layers and so on. And I'm a kind of go-getter, and I have vision, and I go on, and people have to follow me, basically. Those who do not follow, well, they stay behind, or they get the stuff that they don't want to do. Basically, I give a lot of opportunities, but and then in November I said to my boss, Ludo, that was his name, the guy was like, I think a couple of months away from retirement. I said, well, can we arrange my resignation? And he was like, there's a little problem there. I'm actually putting up for promotion, so that's going to be difficult to get that through. So I had this choice of getting even more platinumer or or getting, I don't know where, not gold, not whatever, wood, maybe, I don't know. But I chose the other side. I chose the so-called liberty of becoming an entrepreneur. And that was November 19. My business officially started February 2020. And the year 2020 kind of rings a bell for everybody that's listening, I think, especially February, March. So I had a fully booked agenda. I was on a roll. I had a beautiful turnover that month, and then something happened in the world. And
Right.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Nick. I don't watch news. I don't listen to any actual things that are going on. Like maybe I hear from wars that are going on because you hear it
Yeah.
from everywhere. But I'm usually the guy who's the last in the whole line of information. So that's what happened that time as well. So we get this call. Our government comes on the screen on the TV, and it's like, yes, dear citizens, we are locking down our country. You have to stay home. And it's like, hey
Yeah.
guys, I just started a business. What's this? What's this?
What
So
is
yeah, yeah. What happens then? I don't know
Yeah.
what you were doing at
I
the
don't think
time, but
anyone knows. Yeah, when
it's
you
a
hear
point
that,
in
like,
time
what
that's
is
kind of
happening?
blank.
Yeah, that yes. I mean, the show was kind of born out of that, right? So, like, I was not up for promotion, I'll tell you that
Okay.
much. And I didn't turn that down and say, "Hey, I'm going to start my own business." But in a way, like after the pandemic, I did, So, not to interrupt like what you're talking about, but like
Oh,
yeah, we had talked on your podcast about a lot of correlations between like what you were doing and what you've done and kind of like what was going on with me too. So, but that's interesting. Yeah, like how did just to go back step a little bit, like how did that
mhm.
conversation go? Like, hey, I'm getting ready to like phase myself out. How do I do this? And like, actually, I was going to give you a promotion.
Yeah, I think he never ever had that in his career because these are kind of environments where people strive to always go up the
Yeah.
ladder and there's a career path,
Hmm.
but I'm not the kind of guy who likes career paths, like I said, so many
Yeah.
jobs. And I remember coming into his office, I had this white envelope in one hand that I wasn't really showing yet.
Yeah.
So they had this system a couple of years before. They fired a lot of people, and I mean 1,000 plus for
Yeah.
the environment in Belgium. That was a lot, and we had this law called the Renault law, the
Hmm.
brand of cars, Renault, French
Hmm.
cars, which was created because years before they closed down one of the biggest Renault factories in Europe, and that was in Vilvoorde in Belgium. And they made a law: if you resign or you fire X% of your population, you have to give them extra,
Yeah.
perks and stuff like that. So there was this system where I could work for IBM um, as an employee for a year long and get all the advantages, but did not have to do any activity for them. So I could start a business at
Hmm.
ease and, just
Yeah.
move into it. And that was the first question when I asked, is like, could we discuss my resignation? Because, I came out of a burnout at that time,
Yeah.
I could tell you the story, how that happened, but there were, in any case, there were keyboards flying through living rooms and mouses. And a
Jeez.
very angry person who knew every swear word in the Dutch dictionary in 2 minutes time. So that was the start of my burnout. But my second or third burnout, I can't remember. I'm a hard listener and a hard learner at that level. But what happened after that is like, yeah, Ludo, can we arrange that? And he says, well, this has to go up 3 levels for approval. This costs the company money, so that's already a difficult one. And why do you want to do that? And I'm like, you've seen me work here, you've seen my struggles, you've seen me in the last meeting.
Mhm.
I'm going to tell you, he was not happy with that. They were
But he's
sitting
still
in a
giving you
meeting.
a promotion.
Oh, yes, he was. And that was the whole crazy thing about it. So he's like, we're sitting in a meeting, like in this U form, and there's this screen a little bit up, and they were showing an Excel sheet with beautiful colors, mostly green. And I was sitting in the meeting, and I'm sorry, I missed. No, it's after we had our discussion. That's the way.
Mhm.
So we had our discussion after that. I'll explain that later. Sorry
Mhm.
to mess it up a little bit,
No
but
worries.
so I told him, I've got a lot of issues with the way of communication, the attitude of directors and higher levels and so on, and blah blah blah. Um, and he was looking at me and really like, really, dude, you're really doing this? And I'm like, yeah, well, I wanna step out. What are the alternatives? And he's
Right.
like, well, we can reintegrate you, give you a program, ease you in and this and that. Yeah, that might be an option. Yeah. I've been trying that for 2 weeks now. Actually ran away from 2 meetings, not feeling very well. Driving home, didn't want to come to the office, etc., etc. Okay, that's not going to be an option. So you're really pushing me in the direction of accepting this from you. And I said, well, yeah. So what is possible? And then I asked the question of, can I go into that system, or can I resign, or can you fire me? Because in Belgium, that has an advantage. And he's
Yeah.
like, well, I just talked to somebody this morning. I think it was about like 10 or 11 in the morning. And he just has to sign a paper and you get X amount more as promotion, becoming director in this environment, maybe even taking my seat. I'm like, wait, hold, are you telling me that I was going to get promoted? He's like, yeah, I should have. It's like
You
really,
started
really
it.
dry. I should have told you this a little bit earlier. I said, well, honestly, I don't think it's going to make a difference because I've made up my mind. And I think that's something that does happen. When you made
Yeah.
up your mind, it's difficult for people to get you, set to another thing.
Well, and it's funny because like I'm laughing from an American perspective. Like, like you go in there, you're gonna get promoted, but you're asking to leave. But when you leave, you get these great benefits, or if you get fired, you get these great benefits. And in America, like the boss would look at me and be like, well, I was gonna promote you, but now you're out of here. You don't get any benefits. Like it's a totally different world, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So oh man, I guess I have to go over to how hard is it to become a citizen of Belgium?
Oh, it's not hard. It's not hard.
It's not
No,
hard.
no, that's the crazy part. We have so
Yeah.
many immigrants,
Oh
and
wow.
there are a lot of beautiful people in those stories. But the system here, it is a paradise.
Yeah.
It's tax wise, it's a horrible place to live as a citizen tax wise. But there are so many.
Yeah.
We call ourselves creative bookkeepers.
Mhm.
We do everything official, but you have to know the nuances.
Yeah. Yeah, I grew up in a place in America called Long Island, and taxes are crazy there. Like compared to where I am now, it's like we pay nothing. We pay dirt where I am now. But yeah, anyways, we're digressing a lot here, but that's okay. I just think that this is the most interesting story ever. You're going in there and I'm like, you're trying to quit, and they're like, well, here's the promotion, and here's what happened. That's great in a way. Um, yeah, so okay, so then you were going to talk about what was going on in that board with the green, beautiful
Oh, yeah, yeah,
greens
yeah,
and stuff.
yeah. So you have to imagine yourself that I just had that conversation really recently with Ludo, and I was asked to still be in the company for like 13 weeks. The undertone that he gave me is like, I'm gonna ask you to do reporting for me,
Mhm.
so you don't have to be here. I'm like,
Right.
gotcha,
There you go.
gotcha. But there's a couple of meetings that you really have to stay and come on and this and that. I'm like, okay, fine. I will do my acte de présence. And I came in and all these colleagues were sitting there who were actually going to be, my team. And he was like showing this beautiful board and this and that. And halfway the meeting, they were discussing about how everything was going to be going smoothly and no issues here and that and that and that. And then the other guys were like really silent. And I was looking around and like, really, guys, this is how you react to this? And Little looks at me like, what? Oh, damn, this is the guy that's leaving. What is he going to say? I'm like, this is the reason why I am leaving. I said,
Yeah.
there's too much green there. How can you ever get better by lying to yourselves?
Yeah.
And I could see his head, kind of turn red. And I'm like, with all due respect, really, I will shut up now. But now exactly the reason why I'm leaving. And he's like, I never told anybody that you were leaving yet.
Oh God. See, in America, another fireable offense right there. You'll be walking out with a box and some of your stuff's in there and a security guard, you know.
It kind of felt that way when everybody was looking at me, honestly.
Yeah.
But
No
but
one knew that you were leaving, and I'm like, this poor boss. Are you guys still friends? Does he still talk to you?
oh well, no, not actually. I wonder why.
I
No,
wonder. That's crazy. So
it's
okay.
been been a couple of years, so I might need to call him and ask him how he felt about it.
Yeah.
After a couple of years, it might be okay.
Maybe not show him this podcast where you're
No,
laughing so
that
much
might be a
about
good idea.
as much as I want the podcast to reach other places in the world, but maybe not this way. Make it more difficult for you. So, okay, so you're trying to quit. You're getting offered promotions. You're getting offered other ways to like make money while you start your business. So, like, what is this business like? Why did you want to like become an entrepreneur after working like with all these different, like, 15 different jobs? Like, it kind of sounds like you were an entrepreneur right there. Like,
actually, yeah, after a couple of years, you start realizing that I've been a freelancer for all my life, but with these standard contracts as an employee.
Right.
Like I said, I'm a slow learner. Same with the burnout story. No, in essence, when I think it was 2006, I met my current beautiful, wonderful wife in a law firm, and I was IT, and I just got out of a 9-year relationship, and I didn't actually take the time to grieve about losing that relationship. So I kind of jumped into another relationship really quickly, and after a couple of months, I got the opportunity to go to New York and to become a new manager. They wanted to get me out of the team and then do the teaching there, and then come back to Europe to do more management, well, a higher level of management. And I went to New York. I went 2 weeks. Every time I tell these stories, I'm like, what a kind of a crazy person am I? After 2 weeks, I kind of walked into my boss's office and I said, this is a plane ticket and I'm taking it. I'm going home. I'm homesick. I don't like here. I'm going home. I have nothing against New York. It's just I'm a country boy. I am really rurally born and raised. And I was living in Manhattan.
Yeah, that's
which
crazy.
is for a lot of people like the dream come true. But
a culture shock.
Yeah, absolutely. Completely different environment, completely different eating habits and all of that. And honestly, pricing, wow, what the heck, people? Really?
Yeah.
We think there's inflation now. I think I kind of lived it at that point. But so the basic thing that kind of triggered me was I'm used to having these classic farmer boy plates on the table where you have potatoes, salad, and meat. The nice little 3 things. And I was looking for that, and I couldn't find a basic shop where I could get I got a lot of delis and these street vendors and hot dogs and like. Yep. And pizza. Hey, listen, guys, to be honest, I had a girlfriend. I wanted to be ripped and not grow larger. So, there was a kind of a balance there. There was a motivation. But at the basis, and I finally found one of these shops, and I went in and I saw this vegetable bar, but I noticed something wrong with the vegetables. And I just grabbed one of the salads and just went through with my hand. And I was like, oh no, this is not going to work. So I just kind of found something to eat that evening. And the next day I went to my boss, and he just told me, you're just blowing up your career right now, because this means if you go back, there's a couple of people that have been promoting you, really pushing to get you over here and to do this thing. If you're going back, it's the end. And I was like, yeah, whatever.
That's fine.
Life is life. I will not stay here. I was very young. I must admit now, I'm 45 now. I was 23, 24 at the time. And it's like, you're not ready for these kind of, if you're in the army, for instance, these guys who were there, they were all years on end spent in the army, traveling around the world and this and that. I was used to Europe. I traveled around in Europe, all over Europe. But it was Europe. It's kind of same time zone story and everything. So I kind of messed that one up pretty neatly. And
well, they didn't offer you a promotion or
exactly.
That sounds more like what I know. Like, not only is it like he's not concerned about, like, it really didn't sound like a voice of concern, like, oh, if you do this, you're going to be like messing up your career. More like a threat. You do this to me, I'm gonna bury you in Belgium. Like
which he did, by the way. But in all honesty, I must admit, I still have contact with him. You know, he
Yeah.
lives in New Zealand now. He's retired. And sometimes I just see that he looks at my LinkedIn profile and I just send him a message like, hey, Brian, what's going on? How's life? And
Right.
he still replies, really friendly. So
Yeah.
there's no animosity there or anything like
No,
that.
that's good. That's
So,
good.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, what happened then? I came back and I think we went on a holiday, and I came back from the holiday, and I really had this completely dreaded feeling of fear and uselessness. And so basically, I went straight into a depression,
Hmm.
and it was heavy. It was heavy. I had all medication and stuff. I wasn't put in a hospital yet, but I was really close. Had all the dark ideas, everything.
Hmm.
And that's where I got in touch with other ways of thinking. So mindset change and a lot of these hype words these days. But basically, I learned to become nobody, not really somebody else, but more me. I was kind of removing masks. And I think one of the best things that I've ever heard explaining what depression is what Jim Carrey says when he tells us about his story when he played what's his name again? Andy
Kaufman. Hmm.
Andy Hoffman, exactly.
Kaufman. Yep.
Kaufman, yeah.
Yeah.
Where he took off the mask of being Jim Carrey and switched over to being Andy. And when he came back, he realized that all we have is a mask, or we know exactly who we are.
Hmm.
And I'm still following him in a certain way. I think he's going a little bit far with these things, but
Hmm.
I understand. And that's what kind of happened to me. I got a couple of insights into being who I am in essence. You know, I think it might be looking at back at yourself when you're 8 years old. You know, the inner child kind
Hmm.
of comes up again and all. So I went through a process there, and it took me, I think, 4 or 5 years to really get through it. You know, I went to work a little bit earlier than that. I didn't spend 4 or 5 years at home
Hmm.
being depressed. I think it was by a year or something like that. I always think about it like this. It's like I got married on Prozac. And when I tell my wife this, it's just always, yeah, yeah, you did. Uh-huh. It's like, I got you there, man. Uh-huh. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
this is good medicine. But should I put a disclaimer here? I feel like a
She's not
disclaimer.
allowed to listen to this.
Okay, we'll just ignore that fact.
Just yeah.
But yeah.
Just block
So
her in all the posts that you when you're promoting the show, and
it's a
it'll
good
just
idea,
block
man.
her. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Everybody can listen to this except for Ludo, my wife.
We're
This is
making a
getting
list of
longer.
people. Yeah. This is not helping my show. I really
No,
want to
no,
expand
no,
the
no.
audience, but you're like, I can only release this to my own radio.
US only.
Yes.
Well,
Oh,
okay.
that's true. We can
Yeah. So it's
embargo the
it's
podcast.
so it's just that all those steps kind of brought me to a point where I was like, this whole, and then I found the name personal development thing is my thing.
Hmm.
I loved it. I felt really at home in it. And I started to find out that there was something that was called a coach, and not sports. You know,
Hmm.
I'm
Everybody
I'm not
needs a
really into
coach.
sports. So if people ask me about football or soccer, it's wonderful when people ask me on my podcast about soccer, and I'm like, oh yeah, they play soccer here, and they cycle as well. I see them
Yeah.
driving here. That's it. I don't know anything about it.
We do stuff.
Um,
We go outside.
yes, yes. That's all we're supposed to do, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that's the point where I kind of came into touch with Stephen Covey, Seven Habits.
Hmm.
I read a book, got it here somewhere, The Art of Character, and
Hmm.
this is a book from 1887, I think, where it's kind of a religious. There's a religious influence in there, but this really explains on all the different kind of parts of the human being as character traits, and I started to learn about, wow, there's a lot more to us than just go to work and 9 to 5 and do all these things and strive. And that's where I said, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna help other people become more themselves. And that's where I got into the coaching space.
Hmm.
And that was 2016. I think I really started off really. So that, as you see, that's like 10 years later after my depression. So I learned a lot of stuff. I did a lot of trainings, and God, I read a lot, just to understand all these concepts and all this information, because I finished high school and that was it. So I was like really working class, and intelligence wise, I have the brains, but I have never learned how to learn like high education. But I did it all with experience, and apparently that's also my character trait. That's I have to experience everything, even failure, to learn from it.
Well, that's
So
one
I
of
went
your
on.
best teachers is failure.
Yeah, my best teacher is failure. Yeah, that's a nice description. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of where I ended up in coaching. And then after the years, to the point where I actually resigned, I think it was like a month earlier, I went to this venue where they had a 2-day course for small business owners. I think it was really one of those classic, how can you 10x your business or your profit, and 10x down your time spent, and all of those wonderful buzzwords. And I was very susceptible to that at that point, but I had never talked to real entrepreneurs. I'd talked to people who worked for a boss all my life, so I did not understand. And in my family, I have 2 uncles who were plumbers, and that was the closest I got to an entrepreneur.
Yeah,
so
business
they
owner
just
type.
Yeah. So that kind of triggered me, and I met somebody there. It was pretty funny. We were sitting next to each other, and like, wow, this is good. Yeah, this is good stuff. Yeah, I never know about it. Yeah, me neither. Oh, so what are we going to do? I don't know. 12 dots. And in the evening, we were going to get to the car, and it was like pouring rain outside. And I'm like, come on, let's get into the car. Let's talk to each other, because I think we're kind of vibing here. And the guy sat next to me, and he's like, we came to a point in the conversation, like, I'm resigning tomorrow. Yeah, I'm doing the same. Yeah, I'm fed up with this. I need to do this. I need to do this new thing. Yeah. Let's do this together. It's like the shaking hand and saying, let's do this together, like a brotherly bond. Yeah, let's do this together. And then you think, like, I don't know if you use the F word a lot in your podcast, but I'm really going to use, like, fuck what I do.
So did your buddy get offered a promotion too? Is that how it works in Belgium? I can't get over this.
I have no idea if he got a promote.
Okay.
He was almost promoted, but I think it kind of vibed with him as well, the whole story.
Yeah, sounds like it. No.
And so he got out of the car and he drove home, and we were just on the phone again, talking through the whole thing. And what are you going to do, and this and that. So I had a kind of a vision of what I was going to do, and that's kind of my style as well. I have a kind of a vision. And I drove home, and in the end, I think it was like 15 minutes before I got home, and I phoned my wife and said, okay, honey, when I come home, please make sure that you're sitting down, because I've got something really important to tell you.
Oh, God. You gave her 15 minutes to think about that?
Yes.
You are a brave
How more
man.
communist you can drive home and tell your partner that something's going to happen. Like,
15
and I came
minutes,
home.
I need you to be sitting down.
Yeah, she was actually sitting down when I came home. She sat down in our sofa, and I was like, okay, so are you ready for this? And she's like, really? You're still asking me? And I'm like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to write my letter of resignation. I'm going to finish the whole thing. It's like, and she looked at me, and her answer, really, Nick, you think the promotion is something, but this just really, this is the top of the top. And she says, finally. I'm like, what? I thought you were going to get angry or frustrated or something. She said, no, you've been talking about this for 10 years. It's about bloody time you start doing something.
Right.
Who did I marry? Yeah.
That's
I am
awesome.
still so enormously grateful for her, how she took that on, and she said, yeah, this is the thing that you need to do. Yeah.
So I've got a new career for you. It might be an entrepreneurial thing, but like anytime anyone needs to give anyone bad news, they should hire you to do it, because they're going to get a promotion. They're going to get a spouse that is super supportive. They're going to get, like a tax refund, whatever it is. Like, I can't afford to pay this bill. Well, here's $10,000. Awesome.
Yes.
And that's
I
what the
seem to have a
experience you get
vibe.
with Nico.
Contact him. Keep him
Yeah.
on the phone while you're talking to your boss.
Right. He just needs to be present.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's
So,
my thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Who knows?
But that's great. So you got support, Okay, so you're ready. You're ready to
Yes.
be an entrepreneur.
Yes. And then the whole story with Ludo starts up.
Yeah.
And then so I started off by giving personal development trainings. So leadership and all the experience I had, I kind of bundled that together. And I had a couple of partner companies that I worked with who kind of filled up my agenda really quickly because and that's the beautiful thing. They were doing all the promotion. They needed trainers. So I was kind of walked in there and said, okay, they wanted me to do basic training. Excuse me, and then go right ahead to their customers. And that's where the whole story actually started, by being a trainer. And then what I did on the other side, what I did as well was I did career coaching. So really people who said, oh, my job sucks, I want to do something else, etc., etc. And it wasn't my idea to have them change jobs. It was like, how can you optimize the place that you're in right now as a person? Because to my mind, it is that we come into a situation in life, and everything that we meet at that point is a lesson. There is something in there that we need to learn so we can move to the next thing or the next level, whatever we call it. And as long as you don't fix that, or you don't learn the lesson or take it on, you're probably going to meet the same thing in another company. You're going to meet the same boss who annoys you. I always get this picture from this movie where this boss is using a stapler to annoy her people. That's the image that I get of them.
I think I know what you're talking about. I do remember that. And then there's I think there's a thing going, just a moment.
Yes.
And then she's saying, yeah, I just can't place the movie, but she's something, just a moment.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that kind of image came to mind each time when people are talking about it. But then I enjoyed it because I could see I was really helping people because of the fact that I had so many different jobs. I was like how do you call it? An interview king, because I was easily selling myself. And then in every time I did an interview, I was always either in the first lane or in the second lane, and usually ended up getting the job anyway. So I was very lucky with that. And I had a lot of techniques that I just used, and they were really simple things.
Yeah.
And one of the first thing, and maybe this is something that people in your audience can use even now, is any job posting is what do you call it in English? I think it's solicitable. So you can solicit for it.
You can
any kind,
you can apply for it. Yep.
Yeah, apply for it, exactly. So what I had this guy on one of my coachings, and like, oh, I have this listing and it's perfect. Like all these 10 lines are okay, but then these 3 lines are not me. I don't know if I'm like, if they find anybody who can tick all the boxes, they have to pay them like double or triple, because they would not be able to find them. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I've noticed, that a lot of people drop the idea of applying to a job because they see 2 or 3 lines that do not fit with them. Yeah. That is simply not true. If you see something that you like and you resonate with it, go for it. Do not think, just go for it. And that's what I kind of brought on. And there was a lot of people who were really happy when they went in coaching with me because of that. And then as the years gone by and I was more into the entrepreneurial space and so on, I met a lot more people who wanted to go into entrepreneurship. And then I ended up being an entrepreneur right in the middle of COVID. I think the first week I completely panicked because, what's the fail-safe? Honestly, I had a little bit of Bitcoin, so that helped, but not much. I don't have any more, so that's clear. So that kind of saved me a little bit, but it wasn't the golden rod there. But after that 1 week, I just thought, okay, so I stepped into this adventure. I can moan, I can complain as much as I want, but there needs to be bread on the table. Somebody needs to do it. My wife was still working. She was doing her job, so we had an income.
Right.
And I just went for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think in one day time, I had 4 or 5 one-on-one calls with people that I just met on network events. I just schedule, talk, show myself, show them what I do. I gave them so much value. And I just kept on going. And that's one of the reasons why I slowly got a couple of clients coming in virtually, because in that period, I know for a long time in the US, virtual working is something that was already present before COVID.
Yeah.
But in our region, people were used to getting up, driving over. Belgium, to give you a perspective, if you go from north to south, it's an hour and a half drive. If you go from west to east, it's 3 hours drive. That is the country, people.
Right.
I think it can fit about 30 times in Texas or something, even more.
Yeah, something like that.
So it's like really small. So we're used to driving everywhere. It's just, it's not what we do. And COVID, that's kind of a boundary of, I don't like working online. And this, and it's like, there's no other way. You're going to have to do it this way.
Right.
So I started doing that locally. And for 2 years, it went okay. I had enough. It was okay. But then I started noticing there was a lot of energy leeches coming my way. So a lot of people that were calling me to give them help, but not paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then my beautiful partner had a complete physical and mental crash because of all the stress. The strange thing is that a month before COVID, she applied we have this maternity leave that we can submit for a couple of months.
Yeah.
So our kids were old enough, and she needed to take this before, I think our oldest should 12 or something.
Mm-hmm.
And she was planning some time off. And then COVID came in, and the kids were home the whole time. So she didn't have any time to rest. And it kind of backfired a year and a half later.
Yeah.
And that's where I said, okay, I am going to look for something stable. And then I joined a learning and development team at a chemical plant, which was very strange for me because it was kind of going back to the olden days where I was in chemical plants pulling cables, but this time I was in an administrative job.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of freelance, virtual, kind of hybrid. I was able to, make my own rules of, that day I will working on site and the rest of the time you'll see me remote. So
Mm-hmm.
I could, work 3 days and then 2 days on my business, getting some income and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I did that for a year while still doing some coaching on the side. And then what happened then was I got a call from the lady I was working with on that project. She knew that I was going to get stopped. My contract was going to stop at the end of the month. And she said, I went to a network event last night and I met somebody who put me in this project, and she's got something else across the water. And I'm like, across the water? Hold on. That's where the big chimneys are. Yeah, that's the place. It's a nuclear power plant.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what? This is a zone I've never been before. So I'm an electrician by trade, so I know what power plants are, and especially when it comes down to nuclear. And this was a proposition of a beautiful full-time, 4/5 day job where I had to turn chaos into structure and a team that was in full conflict into an environment of Zen.
That's something I definitely don't want to hear about a nuclear power plant. Yeah, they're just totally at each other's throats. Every one of them's calling up their wives and saying, hey, I need you to be sitting down in 15 minutes when they're coming home from work. Like, that's scary. Working a nuclear power plant, everybody's at each other's throats.
Yeah, luckily one thing that was it was the team who was doing the administration of the trainings, so it wasn't really the operators of the nuclear power plant.
Well,
so
that's good.
That was good.
Different department.
it's a department outside of the danger zone.
Okay.
But that was like that was 2 years ago, and I worked on that for 2 years with my own way of doing stuff, taking things on, people management, with the wonderful things that I've learned at an executive level and at middle management level. So I kind of played the game in a way that the team now is stable. It's like a beautifully working engine. We have our issues sometimes, which company doesn't, and we implemented new stuff, new tools. So that thing's running right now. But then I said, this is still a freelance job. So when they say the budget is the budget is
Yeah.
done, the budget is done. So I need a plan B. And I've got so much experience in understanding what it is to be successful and coming to the point where you're like, yeah, so I'm at the top of my game and I do not feel good. I do not feel fulfilled. I don't have my purpose or anything like that. Maybe even people don't even understand the word purpose when they're right there. So that's where I started booting up a new business where I do. I stopped using the word coach and mentor because, in all honesty, there's too many of them. Basically, for me, that's just too many of them. Now these days, I hear about coaches for vending machines or something like that. It's really like it's crazy. And I said, what is a good word that I can use that really reflects who I am? I create safe spaces. I love talking to people. With this podcast, I'm talking a lot. Usually, I'm one that's absolutely silent. I don't say a lot of words. This is fun for me.
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, of course.
and that's where the point came in of confidant. I am a confidant, so I create a safe space for leaders because they are isolated and they don't have somebody else to talk to. It's just as simple as that. You have to be realistic in these things, that a CEO has their board of directors and their subordinates, and they are not going to open up their heart to the board of directors or their shareholders or their subordinates because they might feel vulnerable or become vulnerable. And honestly, that's a good thing, but you have to tackle a couple of other things first. So that's what I do these days. And that's how I kind of came to this point where I say, okay, and how can I tell my story the best way? Podcasting.
Yeah.
And that's how the Everlasting Podcast started, because I go for everlasting fulfillment.
Yeah. And that's awesome. That was like the first question in this podcast. And like 45 minutes later, we are like just answered that. So now we're going to move on to question 2.
Sorry about that.
No, this is great. It's been very entertaining. And like, one of the things that I really like about talking to guests that are not necessarily American and from another country, from another culture, is that difference. And like, we talked about a number of the different things that like how people perceive success in America is not how people perceive success in Belgium or other places. And it's good to hear like perspectives. And it, especially like part of the reason this podcast, That Sounds Terrific, was created was so that other people can kind of follow in the shoes of the guests and start their own movements, start their own, new jobs and entrepreneurships, right? So, and it's great to hear that you're like one of the people that can kind of help guide that, right? That process, especially for, a boss and entrepreneurs and in some degree too, but especially like someone who's the head of a major company. It's very lonely at the top. You hear that quote, right? It's lonely up here at the top because there is no one for them to talk to, and they have to kind of always be on their game and appear to know sort of everything. Like they have experts surrounding them that are supporting them, but they're not necessarily their best friends that can help them through like that, crazy board, what's what I'm looking for? Their expectations, because they are answering to someone. It's just not necessarily, just one person. But so how can people get a hold of Nico? What is the best way? I mean, we're obviously going to put all the contact information in the show notes, but who are the people that should reach out to you?
Well, I think the most important thing is they should search LinkedIn for your name, Nick Koziol, and then Koziol, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Search for your name and go to the podcast episode that we recorded together, learn who you are additionally to what you do here, and then they'll probably find my name as well. which is Nico Van de Venne, and then just put a .com right after that. That's, I think, the best steps to take.
Yeah, you got to listen to the other show where I'm talking the whole time answering one question. Nico, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you, but I do want to give you an opportunity. Is there anything else that like you want to share with the audience that you haven't had the opportunity to talk about? We've touched on so many cool things, like, obviously if you want to be, leaving a job, you want to do that in Belgium. So like bring up your company and go to Belgium. We've learned that. We've learned that, any other like bad news you want to give to a spouse, make sure you give them 15 minutes to sit down and be anticipating a million things probably going through their heads. So there's a lot of great advice there. But what other things do you want to, like, words of wisdom do you want to leave the audience with?
I think the major message, if you listen to this whole story, and again, I really do apologize for the lengthiness of the story, but I've done so many things that sometimes I kind of get away with it. Never mind. But one thing that I want to bring you to mind is that it was a journey. And one thing that I've learned, and that's really these last 4 or 5 years, is that is a journey that's the destination. It is not what I've reached. I am still at a point. I am successful. I am absolutely successful. I got all I want. I got a roof above my head. I'm talking to a beautiful person right now. Nick, I really love talking to you. It's so much fun. Yeah, thank you. And that's something that I really want to give your listeners is enjoy the journey. Really stop sometimes and realize what you have achieved is beautiful. Even the shitty stuff, whatever's in your backpack, it is a part of who you are, and that's who you become today. And if you look forward, still remember to stop sometimes in that journey, because that's where life really, really is. And I think that's the only thing that I want to add to all of this. Thank you very much.
That's awesome, Nico. And you made me think of Aerosmith, which is also awesome. Life's a journey, not a destination. Steven Tyler. He probably didn't coin that phrase at all, but I'm just gonna pretend that he did. It's been great, terrific having you on the show. You're a terrific person, and I too love our conversations. Can't wait to have some more. So thanks for being on. That sounds terrific.
I'd love to be here.
Thank you for joining us in another episode of That Sounds Terrific. Don't forget to check out the show notes and our website at thatsoundsterrific.com to find the contact information and the best ways to volunteer with the organizations that we feature. If you know someone that is doing terrific things and think they should be featured in a future episode, be sure to email us their name, contact info, and short description of what they're doing at thatsoundsterrific@gmail.com. If you like our show, give us a 5-star rating and give us some social media love by liking our Facebook page, That Sounds Terrific. Follow us on Twitter at Sounds Terrific 2 and Instagram at Sounds Terrific. We love hearing your feedback on how to make our show sound even more terrific. Till next time.